Hi, I'm Kelly from Kelly Jones Jewellery. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this pendant, and it started off completely different and it's ended up with all these weaves and I absolutely love it. So as I originally started off with like 100 centimetres of weaving wire, it finished off with 400 centimetres, so I need to change a few things now. Really pleased with it. It's a little coffin. Because Halloween's coming up, I've just done a new tutorial on Etsy for a coffin, so I thought I'd give you a free one as well, just to get you in the mood. So there we go. I've got all the links below, as I normally do. We've got Etsy shop for the tutorials, Facebook, Instagram. Please mention me when you're sharing your work made for my tutorials. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you. To make this pendant, you'll need 0.8mm wire, that's 20 gauge, and I've cut 4 lengths at 10 inches, that's 25.5 centimetres. You'll need weaving wire, 0.315mm, that's 28 gauge. You need about 100 centimetres. I've wound mine onto a bobbin. This is a Bobeeze bobbin by Beadsmith. If you don't have a bobbin, then you can just cut lengths as you go. Today I'm doing a little coffin pendant. This is just a little coffin cabochon I bought off Etsy. Mine is 20mm by 12 at the widest part there. Tools, I've got my pliers, round nose pliers, wire cutters, nylon pliers. If you don't have nylon pliers, don't worry, I just like to have these handy, so you don't necessarily need nylon pliers. All my tools are Tronex. I don't put links anymore in the description, but I have put a list of all the tools and what they're called, so you can look them up if you want to. So take your 4 base wires and find the middle of the wires, the centre point. And then take your weaving wire, and I've reeled off about 20 inches roughly, because when we've done this little weave here, we're going to do a little bit more of a weave, but we want to do it on both sides, so you just need a little bit of weaving wire still attached to weave on the other side. So I've left about 20 inches, so I'm going to grab that there. So I know that's my 20 inches bit, roughly. I'm going to wrap 3 times around the bottom wire. So now we're just going to weave across the 4, just to hold all 4 wires together nicely. So we'll go around the bottom 2 wires. Come up between those 2, go around the middle 2 wires, come up between those 2, go over the top, come up between the bottom 2 wires, around the middle 2 wires, and then around the bottom 2 wires, come up between the bottom 2. So now I'm going to wrap around the middle 2, so can you see the repeat? So I'll come up between the middle 2 wires and wrap around the top 2, come up between the bottom 2 wires and wrap around the middle 2, and then around the bottom 2 wires. I'm just going to quickly do that once more. Around the middle 2, around the top 2, around the middle 2, around the bottom 2. And then so it matches up, I'm going to do 3 wraps around that bottom wire. So that's the 20-inch bit still attached at the beginning, so that's going to really get in the way for now. But that will help us, we don't have to add another wire then. Now I'm going to go over the 3rd wire up between those bottom two. So I'm going around the middle two wires 3 times. And now we're just going to go across those middle two. We're just going to work across the middle two wires. So I'll go 3 times around that bottom wire. Three times across both wires. Now how many repeats you do depends on the size of your stone. If your stone is the same size as mine, I'll tell you how many we need in a minute when I get there. We need enough to cover the side bit between that point and this point here. Roughly that amount. So I think we're looking at about 5 or 6 repeats. But I'll do a few more and then see how it measures up. So I've done like 6 repeats. Plus I did those 3 wraps at the beginning, so that's like 7. And that is roughly the length of that little side section there. So when you get to that point, just going to make a little bit of a gap in the wire because that will help later, being able to grab that wire. So now, just making a tiny gap. So now here, bend those wires out again. I'm going to go across all 4. Do the same weave that we did before, around the bottom 2, around the middle 2, and we'll just do a couple of repeats this time. Around the top 2, around the middle 2, you know this one. Middle 2, top 2, middle 2, and then bottom 2. I won't go any further with that, we'll catch up on the other side. Okay, I've just done a quick 3 wraps on that last bottom wire because it's all going to come undone while I'm messing about. So my weave has slidden along a bit, and I'm sure I've got more length on this side now. So anyway, just opening the wires up a little bit. So we need to do what we've done here on this side now. So we need to work across those middle 2 wires now. So I'll come up between the top 2. And we need to do the same, like 7 repeats of that 3-3 weave. And I'll do the same as I did here. I'll start with 3 wraps around the 2 wires. Oh, it does make a difference that I haven't got a bobbin on the end of this wire. It's all over the place. It's nice having the bobbin to keep it weighted down a bit, you know. So I've come up between those 2 now. Sorry, I knocked my light off. And then I'll go around that, I was going to say bottom wire. I'm just working on the middle 2, so I'm going to go around that top wire of the middle 2 3 times. And that's our repeat. So we're going to do like 6 or 7 repeats of that. Or however many it takes what you did on the other side. Just copy that. So I've done those 7 repeats there. Put my wires back together and made a little gap there on each side. And then we're going to do this weave here over these 2. I'm going to keep all the wraps, the main 3 wraps all along the same wire. So we're going to start with 2 wraps around these top 2 wires. so it all matches up, and we'll finish with 3 wraps around the top wire. So just do the weave that we did before, just the 2 repeats, and I'll see you there in a bit. So I've done that and finished with 3 wraps around that top wire, and push it all together to keep it nice and tidy. Looking a bit crazy, but that's what we've got so far. We won't cut any weaving wire off just yet in case we need to add a few more repeats. If you take your pliers, we're going to grip this middle weave I'm going to bend it, and you want to bend it to be, it's got to be the same angle as the shape of the stone. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So it's got to be more of an angle than that. I'm going to grip the other side this time just to try and even it out a bit. That's more like it. A little bit too tight now, so I'm going to keep adjusting that till I'm happy. Okay, so I've bent it to match the stone. I like it like that. I'm going to keep it like that. But I was hoping these weaves would meet the corners. They're just a little bit off, those corner peaks there. So I'm just going to add a few more repeats to that to bring it up to that point. And on this side as well. So I shall add another 2 repeats of the big weave over the 4 wires, just so it meets up with that top peak of that stone there. So I've actually added, so I've now got 6 repeats across all the wires, and I've finished with 3 wraps around the second wire, because I'm going to do a little bit more of this weave over there. So the way I worked out the repeats was pop your stone in, and you want these, whether it's the wrapped around the 4 wires, to come just over that peak there, so that when we bend it, the big weave goes across that peak. When I say peak, I mean this corner here, this corner section of the coffin. Sorry if I'm confusing anybody, make up my own words as I go along. So I'm going to match up the other side now. So I'm going to undo those 3 wraps, and then I'll add, so it's got the same amount of repeats, and finish with 3 wraps around that wire on that side. Just want to quickly share with you, I did do a lovely little Halloween pendant, a coffin pendant, written tutorial in my Etsy shop, and this is it, and I really love all the shapes and that on the top. I have made a little video which I'll play in a second, it's only short, but yeah, this is now available on sale in my Etsy shop as a written tutorial with all the pictures to follow along. So now both sides match. There's a lot more weaving to this than I first planned. So now we're going to just add a few repeats across just those middle 2 wires. I'm going to move these out the way. Just going across them middle 2 ones. 3 wraps around the middle 2, 3 wraps around the bottom 1 there of the 2, and we'll just do a couple of repeats of that. So I've done 3 repeats, and then brought all the wires back together, and on the other side matching it up, so now the 3 wraps are along the top wire of the 2, and then I brought all the wires back together. Quite a bit of weaving on this one. Keep the top nice and simple, I think, We'll have a nice woven bottom part and we'll have the top part quite simple. That's going to look lovely when it's all in and oxidised. So we've got the stone there in place. So now we just need to bend it up around the sides. Oops. And we won't cut these weaving wire lengths off just yet, just in case we need to alter it a little bit for size. So I think the best way to do it is if we bend the weave around the stone for a rough shape, and then we'll get the pliers in and make it into a proper shape. So I hope you can see that properly there. We need to work on a flat surface. We've got the stone in the right place. So now we need to bend these two weaves at those 2 points there in. And then when we've got a rough shape, we need to then work on and emphasise that shape with the pliers. So it's just at the top of that weave, it bends in, and on the other one. So keep playing with that shape until you're happy. So when you've got the shape you want it to be, because they're not, because one's in front of the other, it's still hard to get it exact at the moment. When you've got them where you want them to be, we need to then straighten them up. Sit them next to each other, and then we can get the shapes nice and tight. So then you've got the wires all sitting up next to each other. I'm just going to sharpen that bend there a little bit. So I'm happy with that shape now. And then here I'm just going to strap this top wire down, because when we shape these wires in a bit, that top wire needs to be held down a little bit further down. So I'm going to come up between the bottom two. I'll go around the middle two once. Come up between the middle two. Go around those top two wires. I think I'll just go around about 3 times. Does that make sense? So I'm just strapping down that wire at the top, because when we do this top shaping it just needs to be held. Just me being fussy really. So I've gone once around the middle two, and I'll go once around the bottom two, and this is my bobbin one, so I'm going to use that one now to wrap around all of them. So I'll leave that like that, turn over to the other side. I'm taking this little end of weaving wire that I've got still attached there. I'm going to go around the middle two. This is getting really short now. And then, as we just did, I'm going to go 3 wraps around the top 2 wires, and then I'll go a wrap around the middle 2, and then a wrap around the bottom 2, and then I'll do 3 wraps around the bottom just to finish it off. So I'm going to cut that tail end off, finish that side the same. And this one that's still attached is the longer one. Holding that together at the top, making sure all the weaves are all pressed down as far as they'll go. Wrap around the whole thing. About 5 times. And then pick out a back wire, and we'll go 3 times around a back wire just to hold it all together. So I was only going to do a simple one. I'm a bit carried away with this, I think. So reposition your stone. Give the weave a good squeeze around the stone. Turn to the back. I'm going to take this back wire, just making a little gap, and this back wire. And find my pliers. We're going to grab this wire at the top here. And we're going to bend it straight over the stone there, pressing it against the stone. And then do the same for this side. Grab that wire and make a little gap there first. That's it. And then bend that wire over. I'm holding it at the bottom to hold the bottom more in place. And then just twist the top of that wire. And I've bent it over at quite an angle, so it's got a lot of support for that stone. Right, so that's the bottom done. Now we need to do these top wires. I'm just going to pull the wire over the stone. So grip hold of the wire, try and hold it at the top, and just pull it down so it goes over the stone there. To hold it in at the top. Do the same for the other side. Grab hold of that wire and just bend it in. So I'm just pulling it down. Holds it all in nice and tidy. Right, so now we need to do the front. So again, we're going to pull these wires forward, just enough so we can get our pliers in there. We're going to pull the wire like we did for the back. Pushing it against the stone, just holds it in there. Same for this side, try and get it in the same place. So wriggle your pliers in, grab hold of that wire, and then twist your pliers quite an angle, press it against the stone. And my one's a little bit higher than the other one. That's as perfect as it's going to be. So now the top ones. Again, we'll make a little gap. It's getting a bit tight now. Hold the top, bend that out. Oh, to quite an angle like that, and then we do this side. It's really easy to mess it up when you get to this point because you think I've done all this weaving, and if I don't get these to match, it's just going to look really odd. And then twist that side like that. They kind of match. This side is definitely higher. That's all held securely in place. Now time for the next bit. So now we need to sort out these top wires. We're going to have the front two in the middle, and then we've got 3 on each side. Just going to move for now. And focus on these front two. So bring your weaving wire now to the front. We'll go around the bottom wire, over the top wire and around that wire. Over the top wire, and under the bottom wire. And that's our repeat. So we go once around the bottom wire, we go around the two, and up in between, around the top, around the bottom. That's probably a better way to see it. So we go around two, come up between, around the top, around the bottom. And we'll repeat that quite a few more times. And I'll just say before I forget, please mention me when sharing your work online, a Kelly Jones design, and please don't show images of the back as it gives the design away. I would prefer everyone to come here and see the video for themselves. My channel is monetized and I do get a small percentage off Google for the ads that are watched. That's why there's so many ads on here, so sorry about that. But you get it for free and you just have to skip the ads or let them roll. And so yes, please mention me, Kelly Jones Design, and please don't show images of the back. Thanks to everybody for subscribing. I really appreciate it. Getting the figures up now. So we're going to keep repeating this weave a little bit further. So I've done about 2.5 centimetres of that weave. I'm going to finish with 3 wraps around that bottom wire. And keep pushing it together as you go. Bend it forward to start with. And then I'm going to loop it over. If you've got bail pliers, you could use bail pliers to do this. I know not everybody has bail pliers, so I'll try not to use them too much. So then you want to bring it down to the back there. And where it meets, I'm going to bend it up. I can put it down nice and flush like that. There you go, we don't need bail pliers. And then where it meets there, if we can get that nice and straight, we need to go around the whole thing to tie that down. And I'm going to go in that gap there. So I'm just going to go around the whole thing and try and sit my wire in that little gap there. Gone round about 3 times, I think. My bobbins just fell off, so my wire's going all over the place. So then when you get to here, I need to go around a back wire. I've already gone round one, so I'm going around the other one. Just to hold that in place. And I'll cut that wire now, that weaving wire. I'm going to lose these 2 back wires because I'm going to get in the way. So I'm pulling them out to the sides. Cut them off short. And I'm just going to put little curls on them. Nice and tidy out the way. Oh, it's hard to hold it because of them long wires sticking out. I don't want to bend them. So I'm just going to curl that around and tuck it out the way. Make sure you close your curls on the back You don't want it snagging on anything. So I'm doing it quite tight. Curl it up out the way. And that one up a little bit higher so they match. That'll do. So looking at the wires on the top now, we've got 3 to each side, separated them a bit so we can see them. I'm going to take my middle one on this side and I'm going to add coils to it. I think I've actually used all my weaving wire. Yeah, so I'm going to add coils to this wire. I've always wound the weaving wire onto the base wire. I glanced at a video on YouTube the other day, and one of the guys doing a tutorial was actually turning the pendant instead of wrapping with the weaving wire. He was turning the pendant and he made it look so easy. I can't do that. I would love to be able to do that because it seemed to just work so quick and tidy, and do it whichever way you find's best for you, really. I can't remember where I saw about coiling it on like this. I don't know if I even saw it anywhere. So I've coiled a bit, cut off the tail, slide it down, slide it right the way down, nice and tidy. And then that's the middle wire. I don't know if I need to add more than that, so I'll leave that for a little bit. I'll still leave that attached there in case I need to do any more. We'll take the front wire and we're going to bring it down and bend it the other way. And bend it around so it comes over the front and around like that. And then we're going to take the coiled wire, scoop that one around too, to follow that one. So as you get to here, however many coils you've done, we just need to wrap around the 2 wires to kind of hold them together a bit. Just go around it once. And then I'm going to add some more coils to this wire. And this is where it gets a bit time consuming because you're going around one at a time, but you want to get it nice and tidy. I don't think that guy would be turning the pendant now. Maybe he's got a better technique doing this. I'm going to have a look. I was absolutely fascinated when I saw it. I thought it was brilliant. Right, so that's those 2. I'm going to add a few more coils and I'm going to bring these wires up and around the side. So I just need to add more coils and then I'll strap them together again here. Right, I'm changing my original design again. I'm going to add a little bead, a little 3mm bead. I love these little copper beads. I get mine from Trouble Supplies on Etsy. I think they're called Trouble Supplies or Troubles Supplies. So I'm going to take this last wire, pushing it down and bringing it around to the front. I'm going to scoop it around there. I don't want to put too much of a bend into it because I want to get my bead on there. Come on, you little monkey. Right. So my beads on, scoop it around. This looks nothing like my original design. I do like it though. So that's just come around, put a bead on, and then that'll go to the back. Those two, I added more of that coil. I wrapped around once there just to hold them together, and then that'll go around to the back too. These ones over here, right, first one, I'm going to push it up a bit at the top. Then I'm going to scoop him around and get it to come around to follow this shape, to exaggerate the shape a bit. And I'll do the same with the next one. I'll have that come in a bit lower. But again, following the shape. So this one needs to go really low. So I'm pulling it quite hard to pull it down at the back there. To follow those two, like that. And then holding those in place, I'm going to send them around to the back. So they go underneath those front wires. And post them around to the back, like that. So now I cannot resist bringing this wire down. That's got to be done. So these two wires are going around to the back too, and that will hold all that down, and then those three are going around like that. So it has ended up being quite a complex piece, this one. A little bit for the more advanced beginner or intermediate, but we're nearly done now. Right, let's get a move on and lose some wires. We're going to cut this weaving wire. We're going to cut this wire. I'm going to cut these wires. Lose that little sharp bit. Curl that around, holding that side bit there. Little curl. And then these two I'm going to wrap around that woven bit. Is that asking too much? I have got a nice gap there. I could pop it through. That might tighten everything up a bit. I'm going to have a go. I'll take those two wires and just see if they'll go through. Yep, and that'll hold it a bit tighter in place with the stone because we've got a gap there. If you've got a gap there, you could do this too. If you haven't, then you can always take these wires around this one here. Just get your pliers in to make a gap and then wrap them around that one. So I wrapped those little ones around the back and it was much easier than I thought. So I highly recommend you cut them short, just bend them straight around the back there. Keep an eye on the front to make sure you don't misshape them as you tighten them up around the back. That's a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. And there we have it. Look at that. Really pleased with how that turned out. That is nothing how I first expected it to be. I just want to remind you again, I've got that Coffin special Halloween tutorial over on Etsy. And if you want to support me with what I'm doing, giving away all these free tutorials, you can always jump on over to Etsy and purchase a tutorial or two. They're not very much. I do try and keep them really cheap. So thanks everybody, and please subscribe if you want to see more free tutorials. And I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks for joining me today. See you all soon. Bye.